What's up, y'all? We're having an impromptu here. Hey, Cozy. Back in the bird garage, that's right. What's up? What's up, Jake? What's up, Chris? How you guys doing? Did anybody watch that video yet by chance? Joe, you watched it? Oh, okay. It's a Israel Shahak video. It's a pretty interesting. I know, isn't that interviewer wild? That was kind of the point, though, right? I want to see what you guys have it. Here, let me mustache real quick. God, this thing's so dirty. I haven't even trimmed it. Let me just curl it up. This is like hopefully this is somebody's pet peeve, curled mustache. My wife hates like I'll curl the end of my mustache. This one's not even long. This is like a new beard. I'll go along and curl the edges of it. It's just disgusting looking. So the interviewer is pretty annoying. That is oh hell, what's his name? Richard. Is his name Richard something? I can't remember. I don't guess I can close out the screen. It'll probably close the live stream. How is this live stream, by the way? Is this coming through clear? I think I've got more bars. Well, this isn't the final chat. This is just an impromptu one. Like I'm getting ready to go to bed, and then I don't know. I'm getting so comfortable with these at this point that I don't care. I can just like throw them up without hardly any forethought. What would be really cool? What would be really cool would be if everybody, if we got enough of an audience, where it'd be like we could have guests and we could do like the Joe Rogan show, but it'd be like real, and we talk about like actual issues, and it would just become a political disaster. That would be funny. You know, like theoretically, if you had a big enough audience, and if it was well represented in retention, then you could, it almost becomes like they can't, like people wouldn't be able to ignore the topics that you're talking about, especially if the actual viewership was interested. Like if I wasn't just making all the topics and the viewership was interested in these topics, then it's almost like you can't falsify the representation of people, right? Which is theoretically what how like any of those talk shows like Joe Rogan or any of them. What are all the shows that people watch nowadays on YouTube? You got like Rogan, you've got like the Paul Joseph Watson, you've got like all the of course like your leftists. You got like John Oliver and who the hell else? I don't know. I sound like an idiot because I don't watch that media unless I'm looking in on something, trying to follow up on something. But anyway, they don't really have to talk. Those shows don't really have to talk about any kind of actual prevalent issue. They essentially take the synthesized, manufactured issue. Like there's always it's basically like it's like it's very much like a cup game, like a shell game. Like an urban shell game where you take the I don't even know what they do. I mean, they'll do it with like cards, or they'll literally do it with shelves, and they'll just do sleight of hand. And then so you have the thing that you're trying to watch, and then they just slide it out, and then you have to pick the cup, and then it's empty. Right, socially safe. But here's the thing, right? Socially safe isn't even dictated by people, right? Because the society doesn't dictate what is socially safe. The media dictates. See, I used to like. I mean, how do I put this? Joe Rogan. I can understand how people like Joe Rogan because he's fluent in his tempo. You know, he talks about things that are stimulating, like socially stimulating, but they're not important things. They're not really. They're basically they're basically like current events, and then um, like slightly taboo things, but it's usually like inconsequential taboo things. And then if it's something that's like actually consequential, then he kind of touches on the surface lightly, but he doesn't really. It's always like what opinion he's going to take, right? Like he's never going to go contrary. Like Joe Rogan's never going to talk about well, did he ever insinuate that 9/11 wasn't straight up? Has he done that when he covers 9/11? I know his buddy does it. That's on there. He flops back and forth. Yeah. So he's not like he doesn't commit. He doesn't commit one way or the other. He just kind of like leaves it open ended. Doesn't provide direction, right? Yeah. I mean, I figures. I mean, that's kind of like you can't really blame him for that, I guess, because he's was I attached to? No, so I was a 12B, combat engineer 12B, and then they transitioned it. I think when I got out, they went to 21B. Yeah, combat engineer. Uh-huh. Yeah, and then infantry. So like for infantry units, I was attached to. So I was in Task Force 177, which is actually that's like a 177 is like an armored unit, but 177 was under the command of Colonel McFarland. I mean, in terms of like combat deployments, and then of course they did like time in Kuwait and like I went to Kuwait for a couple different things. I got put on an up armor detail for Frag 4 when they updated to Frag 4, and I just got sent to Kuwait for like months to like up armor vehicles, even though I don't know anything about that. I learned about it and I did it. That's not my job. Combat engineering, like actual combat engineering, is kind of interesting because combat engineers are they're really misunderstood even by command doctrine. Hey, what's up? I like peace and justice. The like combat engineering, it's really misunderstood even by military command because they essentially like they don't know where to place it. And there's so many different the role of combat engineering is so wide that they have it divided up into specialized roles. So you have like construction engineers, which is a separate MLS. You got combat engineers, which is going to involve, that's like more of like the direct combat role that an engineer would do, and then you've got like your 18 Charlies, which are like special forces engineers, and those are essentially like, and then you got bridge builders. So bridge building is like its entire own class of engineers, and then on the like non-combat side, you have like electrical, and I mean, you got so many different types. There's tons when you get on non-combat sites, like the whole world of engineering, like electrical engineering, civil engineering, um, construction engineering, all that stuff. So combat engineering is mobility, counter mobility, and survivability are like the three core tasks, which are really wide. And modern military doesn't understand it. It's a really old thing, but so it's like sapper is related to demolitions, like use of demolitions in engineering. So demolitions are used. No, route clearance is not the job of engineers. So route clearance, like, okay, how do I describe this? So like So what happened was in Iraq, disappeared and rebranded. What happened? What happened when you disappeared and rebranded? I got raped by a clown. The um, yeah, I mean Rogan has some. He's got some interesting shows. You know, I mean, I understand. I don't want to be too critical. I just mean that like I know who runs Joe Rogan, right? Like Joe Rogan is like the salesman of the show, but he's not like the uh, money behind it, right? He doesn't have. I don't believe that Joe Rogan has free reign to discuss things. Nor do I think. Like I don't even think. I don't know ideologically, you know, what he thinks is important. But if he did think that other things were important, I don't think that he would be able to talk at. Please shout out to Houston, Texas. Shout out. Don't they say in Houston? Aren't they like? Isn't that Wickham? Is that Houston? Except your baseball. No, that's Utah. Oh, okay. Sorry, I don't do sports. I'm not a sports guy. Alaska's hardcore. Utah is hardcore too. Utah is hardcore because oh shit, I'm sorry, banana. The Como, you out of Como? Does Como suck now? Como really sucked after I left there. It got really big. I mean, it's still a really cool area. It's just not. I just don't like the. I don't like the way that they're totally tied in with the system. You know, that's what's ruining it. Okay, so for combat engineering, sorry, I lose track because I start reading comments and I lose track. So for combat engineering, the it came from like sapper. The term sapper is a French word, and that got really big in World War One because essentially they had let me stop saying essentially. They had in World War One, yes, killing orphans. This is Dugan. That's a abrupt name you have. The 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 sappers in World War One, they have no, I didn't see the MRAP video in Texas. I can only imagine. Where do I live? I live in Missouri. I've lived in Florida, Utah, Missouri, Europe, and then of course, like you know, for service in the Middle East. In Arizona, I've also lived in Arizona briefly for like a year. In Moab, in Utah. Thoughts on Waco, like the event? Yeah, Utah is amazing. It's incredible. It's really tough. Like if you live on the east coast of Utah, so I did search and rescue for the it would have been for like Grand County, Utah, on the sheriff's department, you know. And I got there when I got there, they had like a really long probation program, so I was like on probation for like a year, so I really didn't do much. But the it'd be like lost person tracking and body recovery because they have like Moab's like so if you don't know Moab, it's like a big tourist attraction, so you get lots of tourists out there. But the only thing is that it has no like if you live in Utah, the most especially like Moab or San Juan County, um, any of that area, I mean it's very recently colonized, so it's like unsafe, and the terrain has like a 2,000 foot variation. So most places it's like you walk around the ground, it's just ground. Well, Utah's not like that. It's like you can like if you get into the canyon areas, it's like I mean Grand County and San Juan County, it's like you could be walking and then there's you could just fall off a cliff and die. there's no handrails. Like there's no, like you have to actually pay attention. It's different than normal places because you realize once you're there that everything's set up like a bounce house. When you're in Utah, you're like, oh, okay, this is what the world was like before it was, you know, all neutered. In Utah, like the tourists come out there and then they'll just get lost. They'll walk. There'll be tourists that come to Moab. It's every year, like once a month. There'll be a tourist that'll come out there. I don't want to say once a month. Probably like there'll be like once every 3 months, and then for part of the year during like high tourist season, you'll get like 5 in a month, and it'll be like somebody will walk or anything. Like no, like nothing. Like just got out of the car listening to whatever. I don't know what people listen to nowadays. Whatever. What do people listen to nowadays? They're gonna listen to. They're gonna be listening to pop. They're gonna be listening to whatever concurrent pop. Gaga. They're gonna be listening to Lady Gaga, and then they're gonna get out of the car and like park it, and they're just gonna go walking, and then they're gonna walk so far that they forget where their car's at, and then they're gonna become completely disoriented. And then this is what happens. I'll tell you exactly. This is exactly what happens. They will not have any conception of land navigation or of landmarks or anything like that, or like celestial navigation. So they'll walk and they won't understand the concept of like a parallax or distance. So for instance, they'll see like lights off in the distance if it's night. They'll be like, okay, well I'll just walk to the light because I'm lost now. Well, those lights are 100 miles away, and you're in a desert, and between you and the lights, there are, uh, you know, like you're going to die 1,000 times, and you're also going to freeze to death. So what happens is they walk around, and first they become dehydrated, and then once you become dehydrated, then your brain starts shutting down, and they start making irrational decisions. So, like if you track them, they'll like start making loops and stuff. Like shit that would obviously, like if it was fresh, like you can basically tell on tracking, you can tell when they're starting to get bad, like when they're not going to make it, because as you fall on the tracks, they'll start to become delusional, and you just have like circles and shit, or like they'll walk like right through a cactus bush, for no reason. So they'll be like they could have gone right or left, and they chose like a 3-foot section to walk through that's just like full of cactuses with like 2.5-inch thorns, and then there'll just be blood everywhere because they just walk through it for no reason at all because they're like losing brain function. Then they'll start to take off all their clothes, even if it's like freezing cold outside, end up like laying down and they die. Well, they walk in giant circles. Yeah, when they're functioning, when they're mentally functioning. When they're not mentally functioning, they start doing really weird stuff. Like right before they die. They usually don't last more than 2 nights, like 2 or 3 nights. If they're strong, it'll last 2 nights. So anyway, so the combat engineering is like yeah, if it's a child or something like that, they're not gonna make it overnight. But like an adult, or like a small woman won't make it. They don't have enough body heat to handle the desert night without anything else. We're not doing Jew discussion right now. We're doing that we're doing that in a controlled manner. I don't want to do a stream the chickens. I don't have any quail yet. I would like to get quail. Oh, Saber question. Yes, I'm sorry. So no problem. I'm gonna omit. Oh, new jigger. No problem, new jigger. So okay. So sapper. The name comes from French. When they had the stalemates in World War I, the French kind of you had some in the Civil War too, but the French really got creative with it because of the advance in compound demolitions. So like the French, they would tunnel, and then they would essentially like tunnel holes up to the German lines, and then they would put like a car, the mass of a car, like 2 tons of explosives, like wheel it in, and then they would detonate it, and that would be like an aggregate use of explosives in an offensive operation. They blow through the line, and behind them would be like a bunch of like they'd be ready for an attack, right? So that's like the mass scale traditional use of the sapper, right? But the 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 finer point, like the counter mobility and the survivability are equally as huge, and that's where the command gets confusing. Like they don't understand it, and they're typically used under like whatever the task force they're in, or if they're in a brigade or whatever, in a combat situation, like the commander won't have like an idea of what the entire field is, and so the training doctrine is really minimal. But there's all kinds of cool, like, so for instance, we get this thing, like we have this thing called a M142 multi-firing device. So an M142 is like this little plastic doodad in a matchbox that you pull out, and here's the fun thing, right? So we got Geneva Conventions, right? But for sappers, you have like an M142. It's just a device that's threaded for the standard NATO thread for like munitions. So like you could take, like you could go to a fob or out there, you could defuse them, and you could thread them up to like an M142. Okay, now I'm back. I say, okay, are we back? Where did I leave off? You want me to Dugan Earth to Dugan? Do you read? I do. I got you. Who's Josh? Anti-Semitic? No, I mean, well, here's the thing, right? Where's Josh? Can you hear me? Thanks, Michael. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back on the live stream. Is Josh there? How do I feel about psychedelic drugs? Well, I think that psychedelic drugs peel off layers of your conscious mind to get you to what you already have. So I don't think that they're necessary. I don't do drugs because I am drugs. So Josh, Josh, you asked me, don't tell me that you're anti-Semitic. Now, I understand what you probably mean by that question. But in my opinion, that's a loaded question, because number one, like what I want to give you, I don't want you to take this the wrong way. What I would say is, if you were like, are you anti-Semitic? I say, no, I'm not anti-Semitic. I love Arabs. You get it? You understand? That would be like the most. I can't see a pro-Semitic comment. Peace and justice. What'd you say? So the term. Oh no, you got a 12-year-old watch my video. You better watch out. You're gonna get corrupted. Semitic. No. Okay, so let me explain this, Josh. And this isn't like, I'm not singling you out. I just wanted to address your question, right? It's almost like this. If we talked like there is a surface level that people would talk about it, which is a controlled synthesis is the way that people discuss the relationship between Jews and Gentiles, Jews and the Goy, right? There's like a surface level. Now, the general public wouldn't use those terms. I'm just saying that's like, if you were in Israel, that's how you would use the terms, right? But there's like a difference, right? There's like the surface level, the way that people would talk about it. They would say, like, how do I put this? There's like anti-Semitic, like the word anti-Semitic itself is like a controlled synthesis, right? Because what is it? Semitic implies Jew, Well, Semitic is doesn't mean Jew. Semitic means like a Semitic language, right? Like a culture of a Semitic language. That's what it's referring to. There's a lot. There's a lot of cultures that are Semitic and have been in the past. You know, some of them, the like what is it? Um, oh, I'm sorry about your beard, bro. Well, yeah, because so if you ask me if I'm anti-Semitic, and then I answer you, and if I don't even address the term anti-Semitic, then it means that I accept Semite means Jew, and it didn't originate that way, right? You get what I'm saying? Like that's not the original. The original term of Semite, the definition. They're stealing my bandwidth. Shit, my screen is going wild, wild boys. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. We're I'm trying to figure out some kind of wait, what do you mean? But you're either so you're saying you understand what I'm saying, but you're either for or against, like Judaism? Is that what you mean? Oh, the people like the racial people? You mean like Davidic bloodline? Sorry, I'm just trying to wait. I'm trying to wait to talk to Josh. I think we have a big lag on it on the for or against Israel, but that's not really the way that it is. Do you really think that it's like that? Do you really think that that's the scenario? Like, do you think? So, okay. Well, let me. How about I just talk because it's taken a long time. Do we want to talk about that? Oh, you're talking about Israel Shahak, the man. What a confusing chat. You guys need to stop naming people Israel so that we can have chats about you and not be confused. Well, Jesse is talking about the actual interview, the gentleman named Israel Shahak, and then I think Josh is talking about the like Eretz or Klal Israel, right? Is that what you're talking about, Josh? Isn't it a fascinating interview? It was, yeah. I think it's really cool. So let me address Josh. I see. Thank you, Jesse. Okay, so Josh's question to me was, am I for or against the like? Well, I think he said Israeli people, but that's so. Here's the thing, right? Like, and I don't mean this like this isn't like I'm not trying to correct you, right, or like troubleshoot you. I'm just my understanding. Oh, no problem, flotation device. No worries. I'll leave this one up. So the hell am I even talking about? the the actual so okay, you've got, I'm just gonna pause you guys comments real quick so I don't look at them, they don't distract me. So the like the nation state. So I'm going to say this for people that aren't Jewish so they understand. And this is like I've gathered, this is my understanding from reading. So it'd be reading from Jews, right? Like reading Jews writing, and from like watching videos about Jews, like non-fictional videos, like interviews with Jews, or you know, Israeli publications, and religious publications, and historical publications, like lots of history texts that Jews have written, right? So this isn't like me talking about, Cajun Joe Bob that has an opinion about the Jews. This is what the Jews, what many Jews think about themselves, and it's not monolithic, right? But there are a couple of things that are monolithic about Jews. There are a couple of things, but so the Jews are different from the nations in that they straddle multiple domains. So that's the first thing that you have to understand in terms of identity, right? But that's not all. It's a very complex ball of wax. So the Jews, you can either be racial, right? But technically they also accept converts. So if you convert to Judaism, then technically, there's precedents, there's religious precedents that, to accept them as Jews, you know, like as Jews, not like lesser than Jews, right? So if you convert, if you're truly a convert, it's supposed to be that way. Okay, so you've got converts, you've got uh, the the racial stuff, which would be Klal Israel, which is like the actual tribe, right? Which would be like the Yehuda, and then you've got all the lost tribes. And Jews don't even care about them, right? Like it's not even like they're all unknown. They're the lost tribes. They theorize could either be like, you could have like uh, your Ephraimites, could be like in France, in Germany. Your uh, like who else is lost? Like Reuben, and there's a bunch of lost tribes, right? Well, those really aren't. They're like in the post-messianic era. They're considered, but then there's no, or at least there's not much talk. I'm sure that there's some kind of legal precedence for like how, in post-messianic era, how they get reintroduced into society, but there's not like if you, like, for instance, if you went and said like, hey, I'm a lost Jew, then Jews in Israel are not going to accept you, right? Like if you said that, because they don't know who, they're waiting on like either the prophet Elijah, or the one of the messiahs, to the Moshiachs, to identify the lost tribes, right? So you've got the racial component, which is people. You've got the state component, that would be like a traditional nation state, right? And then you've got the almost like a you also have the religious component, right? That would be like your converts and stuff. The racial component, and then you have the state component, right? So that's like three domains. Whereas like if you take an American, it's just nationalistic, right? So you have like a state component. That's it, right? So there is no, now when America was founded, there was a racial component, which is white, which would be like Europeans, right? But it's not like that anymore. So and most nation states, like nowadays, nation states are essentially, especially like first world nations, they're just going to be a state component, right? So when you say the people, I'm assuming like if a person that wasn't familiar with this stuff was asked, do you support the Jewish people, then they're automatically just going to assume like religious Jews. That's what they're going to assume. But I'm assuming, I'm going to get back to the current comments. Uh, I'm assuming that you're talking about the like Klal Israel. Is that what you mean? I figured I would educate people. My view of Jews has been informed by history and then by interaction with Jews, which my interaction with Jews has been really negative, despite my best intention. But I don't let that affect my, like, I believe that all people are here for a purpose, you know. So like I don't want to hurt Jews, but I do believe that Jews don't take responsibility for their past. They only take, typically, not all the time, but you know, in terms of like any type of group, they really don't want to like take credit where credit's due, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? They want all the good fame. They don't want any of the bad fame, but they worked really hard to make both. Boog, that's a whole nother topic. We're not going to do Boog. We're going to talk about like roughly the Israel Shahak video and then like stuff related to that. Yeah, I'm familiar with USS Liberty. How is that different from any society? How is what different? You're talking to me? Well, I don't approve of the no high laws. I don't like no high laws, obviously. Honestly, my honest opinion, like if this is just my personal opinion, I'm not going to be talking about this on the like when we do our Jew live streams. I'm not going to go into like my personal opinion. I'm going to stick to historical reality and just talk about it and let that paint a picture, right? Like I'm not going to give my personal opinion, right? Because it doesn't matter, my personal opinion. But if I give it to you now, like, I'm fine with that. So I think that Judaism has gone through significant changes over time, and that you know, even the original Jews, like the original, like you have the like rabbinicism now is what's left over from diaspora, you know. But there were other sects that are completely wiped out, and their history's wiped out, and that's because of rabbinicism. Like rabbinicism went to war with them and wiped them out. So like Judaism is a really twisted history, and it's like constantly eating itself. And so it's like currently, you know, the current, like an Orthodox Jew believes that like everything is combined into one Torah, like all the books, you know, like they believe it's all this, like all the same, all one Torah. And do I think Trump is a Zionist? Yes. You joking me? You pulling my leg here, guy? Okay, what makes Jewish society or do both the credit and criticism different from any other side? Because Jews have influenced every single society for like the past 2,000 years, and the way the Jews have influenced it have largely been negative. That's why, you know, and that's not them alone, right? There's like other things have been really negative too. That I'm not saying that like the goyim haven't been doing negative things. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that like Jews, you know, okay, for instance, right? Like, okay, so the communist movement is entirely Jewish, right? Communism killed, you know, over 100 million people. That's one example. I can talk on that if you want. I mean, I think it's a pretty, you know, like if I was trying, if I wanted to have let's say, if I wanted to come like the culmination of Judaism, right? Like the Messianic era, I can't imagine that it could come in any kind of peace or reality and make the world fitting for God without Jews accepting that they made communism, because it killed so many people and did so much bad. But it's like Jews don't even admit to it. Like they don't even want to talk about it. That's pretty suspicious, I think. Like I don't know how you're gonna have to convince all the non-Jews to go to Noahidism by the blade, by force, by death. They're gonna have to choose Noahidism or death, because they're not going to do it, because there's going to be so much misjustice. The history of misjustice is so great that like nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to care. They're just going to choose death. I mean, you get that? And I don't mean that like a judgment. I'm just saying like that's going to be that's the way that it is. These aren't judgmental. Like I'm not saying this like you should feel bad about it. I'm saying that there's a giant hole of misjustice, like in the relationship between the Jews and the Goyim. Even though Jews don't want to admit to that. Disagree? Agree? Jade wants to know, how is all this stuff relevant to our own lives and future? Yeah, so essentially you've got right now, you know, I mean, well, just take something that Jade, what do you think is really destructive to the United States right now? Like if you had to pick something, you're like, what's your like top two or top three things that you'd say like this whole shenanigan of events is so a certain type of thing that's going on in your lifetime that you think is like highly destructive to society or to the country or to the Constitution? Well, the destruction of culture is pretty broad. People being ignorant, yeah, but is there anything? I mean, I don't even know what that means. Everybody's ignorant. I'm ignorant. Okay, so for example, political division, the Federal Reserve. Okay, well, like political division, I would describe that as that was who said that? Let's see. That was Colin Foster said political division and the Federal Reserve. Okay, well, the Federal Reserve was written by Paul Warburg. He also made the income tax, which all your libertarians don't like income. I mean, Americans in general do not like income tax. We didn't have an income tax forever, and then we got it in like I think it's 1915. So you can date check for me, that'd be great. Just so I can give out correct information. So Paul Warburg wrote the original language for income tax and the Federal Reserve language to get it set up. So, and then he's a Jew, and his brother was Max Warburg. He's a Jew. They're in banking. They come from the old Jewish lender families. Okay, and then the other one was political division, right? So the most modern political division that we have in the United States would be like I would say like Black Lives Matter and what's the other one? Like Black Lives Matter and Antifa, right? Okay, well if you look up, so what you can do, and you guys can do this. So like you could read like there's an article that dishonest. Like, do you guys remember? When the media, like the alt media, was throwing George Soros out there as a contributor to Antifa? Do you guys remember that? So that's based off of an article that an investigative journalist wrote, and it's pretty dishonest because he's talking about Tides Foundation, which is signed by George Soros, but it's only one of many that George Soros has in foundations. And it's not a huge contributor to the Alliance for Global Justice, which is like Alliance for Global Justice is an NGO, a non-governmental organization, like a 501c3, that donated to Antifa directly, like huge amounts. And then Alliance for Global Justice also got their injection of money from Tides Foundation, which is George Soros. That's the entire crux of the accusations of George Soros funding Antifa, right? So it's not that it's not true, it's that it's misleading, because the reality is that Alliance for Global Justice is entirely staffed by Jews. The entire board is Jewish. Their registered officer is Jewish. Okay, their contributors are all Jews. Tides Foundation is minimal in its contribution. They got bigger. Patagonia donates to Alliance for Global Justice every year. Patagonia is Jewish. You know what I mean? So it's like they are like the Alliance for Global Justice is destroying, just creating division in society, which is pulling society apart, right? Black Lives Matter is entirely tied in with Jews. You know who helps out with Black Lives Matter is Democracy Partners. Well, Democracy Partners has signed on board Robert Creamer. Robert Creamer is the husband of Jan Schakowsky, who's like the ninth district representative for the state of Illinois. So you have U.S. state representatives, and their husbands, their spouses are running subversive, destabilization ops in the United States with just paying regular people that don't have any morals to go and fuck shit up, and cause chaos. So, although that wasn't, that wasn't what Jade asked. Like Jade wanted to know, or she wanted to know. I don't even remember what the first question was, but she said people being ignorant, and I agree. Like people being ignorant, but that's too broad. And then Colin said those other two things. The where do they find these people to pay? They just hire people. People need jobs everywhere, especially in a city. So did you guys get that? Why is it relevant? Thank you, David. Because why is what relevant? The Jews? Because the Jews, I mean, Jade, are you Jewish? I don't mean that like accusatory. I'm just curious, because I'm curious about your perspective. I mean, I can see your last name, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're Jew. Right? Chat Talk. That was a fun show. That was a fun video to film. I love the Chat Talk. What do you mean? I'm right about the significance of the Jewish people. Am I wrong about what I'm saying, that they're fully staffing the entities that are destroying the United States? Am I wrong about that? Okay, let's see. So much trouble reading the comments here. Look, it's not things aren't black and white. Things are not black and white, So the biggest problem. Okay, let me explain this. I want all the Jews that are in here, I want you to understand where I'm coming from. Okay, it's important. So can you listen to me, please, for a moment? I just want you to tune in and focus. I want to get you focused. We're not talking about the 2020 election. The news media will talk about that for you. Okay, thank you, Timothy. Timothy says it's listening time. I delegate Timothy right there to direct this. Okay, this live stream. Okay, so here's the deal, right? I'm gonna pause your comments so I don't get distracted because I'm easily distracted like a crow and shiny objects or squirrel. So the uh, the Jews essentially, this is my opinion. I'm not going to put this in the later streams, right? Like I'm not here to give non-falsifiable opinions that are like generalized to make people hate Jews. That's not what I'm doing. The reality is that people. So essentially, there are a lot of types of Jews. They all have approximately the same final outcome and goal. And if they don't, if they're secular, then it's like, well, they're not going to fight the people that are in power of Jews, that are guiding the direction of Jews, because that wouldn't be appropriate, right? They're not going to fight their own. So they're just going to go with it. And then if it happens to benefit them, then all the better, right? And I'm talking about secular Jews there. What they don't understand is that, so like if you like, aside from their own scripture, like Ezekiel prophecies and stuff, which are technically being fulfilled, right? Like about to be fulfilled. Aside from that, so essentially what's happening right now in the United States that people don't know, like right now, all the US citizens are like terrified of Jews and terrified of being called a racist, right? Because they're under this Marxist social programming that Jews introduced into the United States to suppress free speech. And if you disagree with that, then we can discuss it and I'll change your mind. But that's like Marxism comes from Jews, communism is from Jews. They're social corrosive programs, social engineering programs, essentially. What they don't understand, or maybe they do understand, I don't know. I assume that they don't understand because I take them at their word, right? I just take what you say and I assume that that's truth. The people in the United States inevitably are going to blame all of the destruction of the United States on the Jews, and then they're going to attack the Jews, and then you're going to get kicked out of the United States, and that's what's coming. And you think that's far-fetched? That's not far-fetched. That's exactly what's going to happen. Not only is that exactly what's going to happen, that's what your book says in Ezekiel 20 when it talks about Ezekiel prophecies that the Jews will be gathered out of the nations under the rod. They'll be sent to the wilderness of the people. They're going to be judged under the rod, and that the rebels among them will be purged and will not enter back in the land of Israel. That's what it says. It's a prophecy. I know that the rabbis say that it's like a prophecy doesn't necessarily have to come true. Well, you're on the track to that. That's what's going to happen. So like essentially what I'm trying to do is I think that it's a bad idea for Jews to not take responsibility for their own history that they created, and then assume it's just going to get swept under the rug, because it's not. And I think that that's a necessary step to account for history, regardless of what the future brings. Like regardless, like I don't want people to attack Jews, right? I think that if you say, well, let's just ignore it and not talk about it, that's the worst thing that you could possibly do. And if you didn't know this, right now, Jews are setting you up, like Zionist Jews are setting you guys up. If you're a normal person, if you're a normal U.S. citizen and you just happen to be Jewish racially, and then you're like just going along for the ride, like you are being set up by Zionist Jews to get purged out of the United States. And the reason that I say this is because if you look at the last several years, you look like Florida passed a law where it's like you can't say anything bad about Jews. You can't. In Florida, if you work in any kind of position that's monetarily tied into the government, you will get fired in the state of Florida. And there's other states too. It's not just Florida. Florida is just the most extreme version of this law. If you tell they have just passed laws where a citizen in Florida loses their First Amendment if it applies to Jews. So like, let's say somebody has a critical opinion of Jews. Let's say somebody's prejudiced against Jews, and or just their, like, let's say that you're a school teacher, and then you say you're in like you're somebody overhears you saying that like you think Jews run the world. Well, you're gonna get fired. Okay. What have you said? I think that the African slaves, the U.S. population, African Americans rule the world. What if you said that? You wouldn't get fired, right? Like, no, you're not going to get fired. So, okay, we're charging. We're good. So there's a difference there, right? Is everybody tracking so far? The difference? So, look, I understand that there's Christians in here and they want to talk about Jesus, but that's going to have to be a totally separate thing. Like, that is a huge topic, right? It's not appropriate for right now because we can't just go all over the map. Okay, so nobody else has the legal protection that violates people's constitutional rights. Okay, so now, if you're not familiar with this, and I found that a lot of Jews are not familiar with this, I'm sure that you're familiar with the concept of pogroms, right? Like Jews getting like legally assaulted, or being mobbed and assaulted and murdered, and then being expelled legally from the country, like under decree. Like you understand that there's like a long history of that. Okay, so the entire reason that Jews Jews had a Cold War with Spain, right? And the reason was because the Dominicans, which is like the Catholic religious entity aside from the monarchy, believed that Jews were, because they were Jews, because they were doing conversions, right? So then there were Jews that were like essentially like secular Jews, and they thought that they were going to be smart, and so they were like, well, we'll just practice Judaism in secret, sneak in there, and then we'll fuck over this government because we don't care about it anyway, and and then we'll have our way. And then so what happened was they started destabilizing the Spanish monarchy, and then you get like the Spanish Inquisitions. They burned a bunch of Jews alive, they killed, murdered them. You see what I'm saying? So like the prior to that, you get all of the court Jews. Their relationship was that they would provide monetary and banking service, like lending services and acquisition services through ancient Jewish trading networks for the Charlemagne kings through Europe, like all the. And then what happened was they would get protection from the kings. So the kings would despotic in some cases, and so the citizenry would already be uncomfortable with the king, but they're like, well, this is, the citizens just come with the land. They're like trees, right? They came with the land. So it's like they're not going anywhere. So they're like, well, I don't like this shit, but I live here and I'm not going to go anywhere, so this is my king. They don't have to feel that way about Jews, right? Because the Jew is just visiting them, right? They're not from there. And so it automatically created. So what happened was that they would attack Jewish populations, and then so the kings that were already despotic had to make special legal laws to guard Jews, and then it was illegal for citizens to attack them, and then so the Jews got special class, right? And then it made the citizens resent them even more, and then it would cause pogroms. And so that's like the history of pogroms. The entire history of pogroms is related to one of two issues. It's related to, number one, subversion and decay of the host state or society as perceived by society. Whether or not it's true, doesn't matter. I'm just saying that this is history. And the second thing would be that they had a very obvious and publicly known special class where they received special treatment from the king over the host population. Okay? Do we understand that so far? Is everybody tracking that? I want to make sure that we got, okay. Thank you guys. Thank you. So, so right now, what is happening is in Europe, or well, both secular are writing the bills for these, like for Florida. Like Florida's bill is obviously written. No, okay, sorry. I guess my connection's dropping. Sorry about that. So if Jews are lawyers, then they're entirely familiar with the history of pogroms. I know I need a Wi-Fi extender. It's so true. Am I back? Okay. So Jews in the United States that are working in law are curtailing writing, doing the complete language of providing for Jews in the United States special class. Jews in the United States, for whatever reason, are completely okay with this, which is really alarming to American citizens. Because, like, for me, like being an American, like I don't want a special class. Now, I don't want to be like singled out and killed like I'm being right now. Like people look at me, like if I went to New York, they're going to be like watching the MSM, and the MSM pretty much teaches them to hate white people. You know what I mean? Right? But like, I don't have anything to do with MSM's represent you know what my ancestry is? I'm Alsatian, and then we broke off into England, and I was a slave. Like my ancestors are slaves. So like I'm nothing but slavery. Like my ancestor got accused in a group, got captured in a group of people who like got like rapists and murderers, and then he got accused. You know, he was with the group, so he just got accused. So he was like slave to execution, and then they said, well, we don't have, they didn't have an executioner, and so they picked him, and they were like, okay, if you kill all your buddies and execute them, then you can live, but then you have to be the executioner forever. And that would have been under Queen Elizabeth in like the 1600s. So like my ancestors are slaves, and then they came into the United States under German immigration, right? Like under the German immigration era. So like I'm not who the media claims like white people are is not me. Like I don't have any kind of, and then when I was like everything that I have I've made for myself. You know, like I've been homeless before when I was a kid. You get what I'm saying? So like I don't have any well my parents are actually they're doing fine, you know, like right now. But like I don't, you know, I'm not like that. I don't take money from my parents. I ran away from my home when I was about 13. And I was homeless for a little bit, and then you know, the rest is history. Okay. So you got to ask yourself why are the Jews creating a situation for pogroms, and why won't they acknowledge it? And it's just it's a very big and confusing situation. It's really confusing. But what's mostly like what's really confusing to me, or what's tragic to me, is that like so I've got Jews on here, and then it's like, you know, how do you guys take what I'm saying? Like when I say this stuff, do you guys take it like, are you offended by what I say? What are you confused about? I'm not confused. Okay. All right. So you're not confused. You get it. Okay. So, so that that is how it relates. Like you are building up into an era where you're going to have the expulsion of Jews out of the United States. Now the Jews know that are running all this shit behind the scenes, and that's why they're setting up China, because they're trying to set up China for Jews, so that Americans blame China and get confused with China, and they don't blame Jews. China knows that the Jews are uh, motivating or are twisting the United States into the direction, right? Like China already knows that. China has bestsellers, like China's nonfiction bestsellers about how the Jews run the United States. That's a commonly accepted belief in China. Like they have like how-to books on how to get rich on Talmudic secrets and stuff, like in Mandarin. Like they're like all about, like they openly believe in China, they openly believe through their provinces that the Jews run the world through finance. Okay. And so it makes sense. It makes sense, right? Tactically, like if you are pulling the strings in the United States, well, you set up China, and then China, and then the dumb Americans fight China, and they all kill each other, and then you just take the United States. That's the plan, clearly, obviously, right? But it's not going to work. It's just everything's going to get fucked up. The Chinese are going to turn on you, by the way. The Chinese are going to turn on the Jews because the Chinese don't believe in the religious entities that like Abrahamic religions, and it's really the situation is really unfortunate. Number one, because Americans are so like, I mean, I know that Americans are incredibly, like right now, they're incredibly greedy and like selfish in terms of their consumerism, right? Because it's like we're being overstimulated with consumption. But the reality is at the heart of like Americans, like the European people that are the United States, are so meek that they're allowing all this abuse, right? Like that's what's happening. And that they out of the goodness of their heart don't want, like nobody wants, like everybody just wants peace. But it's like the plan is, I don't know what the plan is. I'm not going to insinuate what the plan is, but it's not good. It's not like anybody that's in control of the United States wants to give freedom for the like pioneer population of this country, right? It's not like we have a hopeful prospect for the future. Like we have a dismal prospect for the future, and suicide is really high right now. You have the Sacklers just got sued by a state AG because they had meeting minutes in documentation of like how they were going to plan to kill the population by introducing large amounts of opiates, and they were going to like promote it through doctors to give people, overprescribe people opiates, and it caused the opioid epidemic and killed like tens of thousands of people in the United States. And now we got junkies everywhere. Like you get what I'm saying? Like that you might not perceive that if you're a Jew, you may not perceive it, or maybe you do. I don't know. But that's a situation that's like we're coming off that now, and now we're like moving to like have to go fight China, and then we've got a lot of vets. We've got a lot of vets here that are highly damaged from the wars, right? And so like what the Jews I think are overlooking is that number one, it's like the in-game plan, unless it's just to kill us all, which could be the case, then it's like the plan's not going to work because I mean if they kill us all it'll work, but if they, I mean it might not even work then. I don't know. There's there's a very good possibility that they're gonna kick Jews out of the United States. You can't see it right now because the media doesn't reflect that, but our media is all controlled. It's like it's all controlled. But if you go on YouTube videos, it's gonna be nothing but comments about Jews. Have you noticed that? Like YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and Facebook all came out with a censorship program where they're going through and like censoring everything, right? You guys remember that? It was just last year, 2 years ago, or it's for the past 5 years. They started off slow. They got really extreme in the last 3 years. Well, you know what that's for, don't you? That's so that they're trying to stop people from reading comments about Jews and stuff. They don't want people to associate Jews with the problem because Jews make up the entire board of directors of all of those companies that I just mentioned. Every single one of those, Twitter, YouTube, Google, Instagram, and what else? I mean, Snapchat, Periscope. It's all Jews. You see what I'm saying? And so like people are going to figure this out. Facebook is all Jews. And here's the thing, right? It's the Jewish representation in the companies is obscene. It's like way higher than their proportion of the population.
Like not a little bit. It's like all of the head positions, like every division head and every like executive or VP, like anybody that's not on the poster is going to be Jewish. It's so obtuse and over the top. Like it's absurd. In Hollywood. I mean, it's everything. It's a lot of things. Primary and secondary weapon. I'm always I'm an M4 and Glock 19 guy. I don't know if Jackie Chan's a Jew. How would I know that? Well, okay. So now I'm talking the Jews, right? The Jews in here. So the whole thing is right. Like the environment is made in the United States right now. The environment has been created where it's like nobody can even talk about this, right? So like I can't say the word Jew without a Jew getting nervous and being like, "Ooh, is he against Jews?" I can't say Jew without especially the general public, like the dumb general public that doesn't even know anything about Judaism, has no idea, that thinks Judaism is just like a form of Christianity. If I say Jew and they hear it, is they're like so guilt ridden about just their entire existence anyway. Like they hate it. Like if I say the word Jew in public, not even in, I mean, not, I'm not even considering a derogatory mean. I'm just saying like using the word. I'm gonna get more looks from non-Jews than I am from Jews. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so Jade asked, where I'm stuck on is how do you differentiate between a Jew that is in on this whole thing versus someone who's just part of the religion or ethnically Jewish and is on one of those corporate boards? Well, here's the problem with that, Jade. Here's the problem. Uh, here's the problem. I don't even have to consider the psychology of Jews. I can just consider my own psychology. Like I can project a thought experiment that I get onto a board and everybody looks like me on a national, like Facebook. Like let's say like I invented Facebook, okay? And then like I'm hiring people and then I go into my board meeting and I have 100 people that look exactly like me. Okay? Like that's pretty obvious, but I don't care, right? Like I don't really care if that's like my personal opinion is if you have like standards that aren't related to race, which is what I think they should be, then it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter who it is, as long as they're fulfilling the position correctly. Like that's the only thing that matters. So if it ended up being everybody like me, and it just so happened they were better, like I don't know, maybe like a bunch of clones of me would be like good for a comedy writing team or something. Well, sorry, we're just gonna hire a bunch of clones of me to do that. The problem is though, if I do that and I'm in the board meeting with a bunch of people that look exactly like me, and then a bunch of other people that look exactly like me are also running a media program to make everybody in the United States force them to hire like racial quotas, then it's pretty, like it's pretty dishonest, right? Like you don't see that? How do you don't see the conflict of interest there? I mean, I'm not saying this like a judgment. I'm saying like you have to understand that anybody that realizes this, I mean, I understand we have cognitive challenges in the United States that we're pretty dumb here, but like at some point the general public is going to figure it out. And then what do you think they're going to do? Like what do you think is going to happen when all of the conservatives realize that the extreme left, like the socialism in the United States, is essentially traceable to Jews, like on paper, like when you trace Antifa, it ends up just being a bunch of NGOs that are Jews. The actual people on the ground that are Antifa aren't Jews most of the time; they're just people that get hired. But the actual people that are doing the funding by the receipt paper that they're required to keep by the IRS by the Form 990s, 990s, and 990EZ, what do you think they're going to do when they realize that? Like they're going to feel pretty betrayed, right? I mean, I'm just saying, like that's a rational human response is to feel betrayal, right? They'll grab their ankles, probably so. Fucking pussies in the United States. Is the answer pogrom? Yeah, I mean essentially, but it's not going to be like essentially. I think what you're going to happen is like because the United States has had like forced immigration. Now we're like we're getting a bunch of like even minority populations, and then you still have like the we're like I think I don't even know what the ethnic quotas are right now, but like like obviously like white Europeans are lower than normal, right? But than they used to be, right? And we've got a ton of like small minority populations. Well, it's gonna be like a pogrom, but they're not gonna believe in the word pogrom anymore, right? Like they're not gonna accept the term pogrom. They're just gonna be like, well, we're kicking out an enemy, like we're fighting enemies of the United States. That's what's gonna happen. You see what I'm saying? And then they're gonna assume they're gonna take it. They're gonna go like this. They're gonna go. If I was on the Facebook board and everybody looked like me, and then if I gave a fuck about this country, I would say something. But here's the thing, right? Jews are only less than 2% of the U.S. population. So you know what I mean? Like I know for a fact that like for instance an ethnic African American is gonna be in an establishment and they're gonna notice other black people, right? Like they're gonna know, like if they're in an establishment and then there's all white people and there's one black dude over the corner, he's just gonna notice them. Like I'm not saying he's gonna be like, yeah, brother. I'm not saying that. I'm saying he's gonna notice him with his mind, right? Well, black people are like 16% of the U.S. population or something like that. Okay, Jews are less than 2% of the population. So Jews know when they're in a room with each other. Okay, so Jews logically know that there's overrepresentation of Jews in all of these places, and they're just hoping that nobody notices, but everybody notices. They just haven't defeated their normalcy bias yet. Do you see what I'm saying? So like, so if I didn't care about Jews as people, like if I didn't give a shit if you guys died, which I'm not saying that I'm not saying that. I'm saying that human life is precious. That's what I'm saying. Like creation is precious. Okay? Even somebody that I don't agree with, I don't think that somebody should lose their life. I don't think it's necessary. Okay? But it's necessary for people to defend themselves. Like if your life is going to be taken away by somebody else, then it's necessary to defend yourself. So like, I don't want Jews to get attacked, but it's like, you guys aren't even looking at this situation rationally. Like it's not a rational, I mean, it's just like, there's so much gaming going on and so much dishonesty. It's like, how do you expect this to ever end well? It's not going to end well. It's going to end terribly. It's going to be a horrible situation for Gentiles too. I mean, there's going to be tons of goys that are going to get killed. Yeah, Jesse says, Doug, it's way simpler than that. People do bad thing equals calling that out is not any way xenophobic. That's correct. That's exactly correct. But in the United States, it is because of social engineering. Black culture is extremely harmed. Black culture is so harmed in the United States. It's like, I mean, it blows my mind. Like it's beyond my imagination how destructive the entire process since the 1860s has been for blacks, and that they didn't even like, they can't even, they don't even I mean, they're starting to realize it now. They're starting to realize like the social engineering, you know, and like MLK and shit. Like they're starting to figure it out now. But my favorite black guys are like Malcolm X. Like Malcolm X is he's my lizard. You know what I mean? Because he's about truth. I'm attracted to truth, no matter what, no matter who it is. If it's truth, it doesn't matter who it is. But I don't like fake people, like especially deceitful people, like somebody that wants to come off as righteous and then they're fake. I can sniff that shit out in a heartbeat. Like I have no part of that. I'll call them out too. Yeah, Dorner, the Dorner. Can't corner the Dorner. What it is about? There's something about Dorner that was interesting. So you guys get what I'm saying? Now, this is what you should know. This is what Jews should know. So, like, if we talk about, you want to talk about like the World War II and the Nazi era and the German, like all the like the German expulsion of the Jews and stuff. So, like, you need to understand, like, when the Third Reich came into power, prior to that, right, you had attempts with Zionism in Europe. Like early Zionism failed, right? Like Theodor Herzl, when he tried early Zionism to cause Jews to violate conditions of Aliyah and leave early to go back to Eretz Israel, right? They failed like in the early attempts. Like they had like publications. They did like all the classic shit. They made like pamphlets and booklets, and like passed them out in Europe. And then like the secular Jews of Europe, like Germany welcomed Jews. You know that? Like you're aware of that, right? Like when Jews came into Germany, like Germany after this, they came in before the 7 Years' War when Germany was just like a bunch of small dukedoms that weren't a country, like a consolidated country, right? And the Germans were like, I mean, have you been to Germany? Do you know Germans? They're like the nicest fucking people ever. They're not like, you know what I mean? Like the way that history portrays them in like school and stuff. They're nothing like they're like the most tolerant and like fluffy personality type of people that you could meet. And Jews should know that, or Jews from before World War II knew that because they were so nice. They let them into everything. They were up there next to the Kaiser, you know, in building the German Empire. And after all that stuff went bad, right? It went bad from World War I. You know that? So like, essentially, if you don't know this, if you're not aware of this, what happened was, and I'm speaking from like I'm trying to. So history. Like if I went to school, right? What they would tell me in school is they would say, yeah, World War II happens, and the Germans decided that, you know, because they're murderers all the time, they just want to Holocaust all the Jews and murder them all, and that's it. That's the story. Done. Germans just decided they wanted to kill all the Jews, right? Like that's a story, but that's not the story. Do you guys know that already? Yeah, I lived in Germany. I lived in Schweinfurt. So I know the German. You know how fucking meat beaten down they are now? I mean, there's countries like destroyed. It's really sad. It's a beautiful country and they're beautiful people. They shouldn't have been destroyed. So yeah, why is Vaden? Yeah, I think I've been to. Well, so okay, yeah. Let me tell you. So Drew's asking about what happened. So what really happened? I'll tell you exactly what happened. Okay, I'll tell you exactly. Now I'm not going to be able to. You got to understand something, right? Like I'm sitting in a garage. Like I don't have source documentation here, but I've been reading about this stuff for the better part of like loosely for like a decade. But I've really gotten into history, like Judaism and the nations in the past like 7 years. So like, I'm not saying, oh, like I know where to find the information if you need this stuff, but I'm going to skip it. And I'm just going to tell you what happened in a general synopsis, right? So what happened was that the Germans let the Jews come into Germany in the 7 Years' War, which was engineered by Jews. Okay, that's just the way that it is. But not Jews like all Jews wanted the 7 Years' War. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the key players in causing the 7 Years' War and the power to civilization that came up with the nation state was theorized by Jews. Okay, so if nothing else, you can, good job, you're smart, right? I'm not going to hold back. I'll tell you exactly what I think. I'm not prejudiced though. You don't have to worry about that. Okay, so the Germans, once they became an actual German empire, allowed the Jews to serve in every capacity that they wanted to, except like Kaiser position, right? And then they allowed them to, like they fully integrated them, like gave them like total, like there wasn't I'm sure that like Orthodox Jews, probably because they're separate and because they have such separate, like when they're following mitzvot and shit, they've got to be separate, So I'm sure they probably didn't get along great with Orthodox, but like the secular Jews in Germany went all the way up in the government. You have like Albert Ballin, right? He had the shipping line for Germany, like around the time of Titanic and all that shit, like making Germany number one. Germany was competing with the United States. Like Germany and the United States got created out of the 7 Years' War. Germany was on one side, America was on the other. So they were like sister countries in a way. And then they both went through industrialization at the same time. Okay. And then when the United States went through industrialization, it didn't have any Jews, or like hardly any. It had some Jews, but not a lot. There hadn't been mass Jewish immigration yet. Germany, before it even became a country, already had a population of Jews. Like Germany was like the USA is now with Jews before they ever became a consolidated country, like from diasporic Jews. Okay. And they let them get up in any position they want. Like there's no limitation. There's no societal prejudice or anything. Okay. So you had like Jews in positions that were really high up, like in the military, their military and industrial complex. Okay. Like Ballin and shit like that. What happened was Germany was winning World War One. Like Germany was going to win World War One. And like the history of World War One, the assassination and all that, right? So they essentially through the international media got pumped up through the papers, like how the press pumps up the country now. Like the press will say shit about Trump, and then Trump will like respond and react. I mean, it's probably all an act, but Trump will like respond and be like, the media said this, like we don't do that. We're gonna go all the way in the opposite way that they said. Well, that was how the Germans were. So that's how World War One started. It's because the media pumped up the assassination, and then the media was 100% behind the Germans. So like international media at the start was anti-Russian. The reason that the Jews ran all the media in Europe. Okay. So the reason that the Jews, I can tell you right now, you don't even need a source. It's just logical. I mean, I have sources if you want them. I have to look. I'm not prepared. The reason that the Jews were behind Germans is because they let them completely integrate into society, like no question asked, just like the United States. Russia, on the other hand, had a failed communist takeover in like 1890s. So like the Jews in Russia tried to knock off the Tsar in the 1890s and they failed. And then the Russians were like, and they fucking squashed that shit and killed them all and kicked them out of fucking Russia. They're all exiled. So like Lenin and fucking Trotsky from the communists, they got exiled out of Russia by the Tsar. Okay. So then what happened? Let me tell you what happened. This is what happened. So Germany got pumped up by the international newspaper to fight the war, just like the United States did with Iraq. So like the media was all like, yeah, go Germany, like show them who's boss. And then the Germans were like, okay, we're going. Like, thanks for supporting us, support the troops. And then what happened was Germany was allied with the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire possessed Palestine. Okay? The Jews wanted Germany to fight World War I because they wanted to get Palestine. So what happened was when the Germans went down for the Turkish campaign, and they had diplomats in Palestine, and this I don't have a source for. This is just total insinuation. It's a logical deduction. But German troops were in Palestine during World War I, prior to them like starting to lose the war, when they were winning, when they were on the upshot of it. They were in Palestine with the Ottoman Empire, and it's known the relationship between the Ottoman Empire and the Jews. Like, they don't get along, right? Ottoman Empire was very possessive of Palestine. Jews always wanted Palestine. Prior to this, there was a failed Zionist movement in Germany with literature to try to get Jews to make some like small settlements in Palestine. None of the Jews wanted to do it because they were too comfortable in Germany. So what happened was, the Germans viewed, if you take on a German perspective, the Germans viewed the Jew as a German citizen. They didn't view him as like the chosen people or any of that stuff, right? They view the Germans as like a citizen, like they're a citizen, they're a patriot, and they believe in Germany. They believe in the German Empire. Okay? So when the Jews, when the diplomatic Germans that were Jews went to the German Empire and were like, hey, now that we're in Palestine, can we have Palestine? Like, is there a way that we can work that out? And then the Germans would talk to the Ottoman Empire that was their ally in World War I. And what do you think the Ottoman Empire said? They're like, fuck no. You know, I don't even know if they asked him. There's no record of them asking it, as far as I'm aware. But if they were to ask it, you can imagine. You know, so either they asked them and they said no. Hang on, redneck, we're getting through it. Just slow down. The Germans like said to the Jew, they were like, you're basically, you know, how they looked. Like if you could imagine in a sentence what the German psychology would be, it'd be like, I understand you want Palestine, but like, you know, we've got to. It would be like, this is what it would be like. It would be the equivalent of like we're right now, like we have operations in Niger, right? Like the U.S. government, like special operations is in like Djibouti and Niger and shit like that. It would be like if you went to. It would be like if a diplomatic unit in the army had a small base in Niger, and then you had like Louis Farrakhan came down there like on a diplomatic trip and was like, hey, can you give us Niger, you know, to the U.S. Army? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, what do you think? What do you think Fifth Group would say if Louis Farrakhan came to Niger on a deployment and then like talked to the generals in the State Department and was like, hey guys, can you give us Palestine? Or what do you think the State Department would say? They're gonna say no, right? Because they're viewing it from a nationalistic sense. They're like, we're in a coalition. Louis Farrakhan's a U.S. citizen. He doesn't need Niger. If he takes Niger, it's gonna piss off the Nigerians, and we're gonna have a Niger war. You get what I'm saying? Is everybody tracking this? You guys are having like a side conversation. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Jade. Okay. No, it's no worries. I just wanted to make sure that you guys could hear me because my connection sucks. So what happened was, this is the critical part, right? So in 1916, Germany started to run out of food, okay, because they were spread so thin, but they were winning. They were tactically winning, but they started running out of food because they couldn't produce enough because they were importing so much. So what happened was that in 1916, they gave an unconditional peace offering to Britain, okay? Now, if you know anything about Britain's full of Jews, like in the government, like Britain's Jewish. So Britain has been Jewish since the Cromwell Revolution. right? So like World War One, Britain is like all Jews, other than the figure faces, other than the people that are in the news. Okay, so what happened was Germany offered them a peace offering, and then they flat out denied it. Not only did they flat out deny it, the international newspaper switched essentially overnight, like within a month's period of time. And you can you can look this up, and you can see newspaper articles from Europe and the United States from that period, like from 1915, 1914, 1916 on Library of Congress. You can pull up PDFs of the newspapers, like New York Times was around. So you can read New York Times articles and you can see the shift. Like at the beginning of the war, they would talk about how grand Germany's guns were. They're so big, like their railway guns are like the biggest guns. Like that's where the term Big Bertha comes from. You know when people call like that's Big Bertha? That's a German term, right? So it's from the newspapers because the international newspapers would promote Germans to pump up the war. So what happens was they switched overnight, and then it became like the Hun. They did like the Hun campaign, right? So they did that in the United States and in Europe, and then England, yeah, the railway gun, and then England like publicly denied the peace terms. But you know what the peace terms were? If you look up the Library of Congress articles, it's published everywhere. Their peace terms were: we, Germany, will give everybody back all the land that we've conquered in this war. We'll give it all back, and we'll go exactly back to how things started. That was it. They were basically like, we're kind of sorry, but you shouldn't have messed with us, but we're willing to go back to the way that things were. That's what the piece, it's called the status quo ante basis. It's in the newspaper. Look it up. Okay? England and the international newspapers for all of Europe went in a coordinated campaign, the Hun campaign, and then they turned down the offering. The reason is because the German Jews in the German government knew the disposition of their resources and how they were running out of food, and then they leaked it to the fucking English Jews. And so the English Jews, you know, it was like a spy ring. And so the English Jews told the English government, like, they're running out of food, you don't have to surrender, okay? Then what happened? England then approached, or I'm sorry, the Zionist diaspora from everywhere sent a representation to England and requested of England, they were like, okay, we can get the United States to come into the war as your ally and defeat the Germans. In exchange, we want you to run the campaign all the way through the Ottoman Empire and take it out and then give us Palestine. Okay? Out of that, you get the Balfour Declaration from Lord Balfour through the British Parliament, a signed hand receipt, which is the Constitution of Israel. Okay? And that was signed in 1917. That's the foundational document, the legal document, the legal justification of the state of Israel in international law is the Balfour Declaration, signed in 1917 with Britain, with the British cabinet by Lord Balfour. Okay? So as soon as they had that guarantee, then you had the entire campaign start in the United States for anti-German. Okay? And it was so extreme. The United States is full of Germans. Like at that time, in the beginning of the 20th century, everybody like it was like the English colonies, and then it was like Germans. Like that was like the primary groups in the United States. So they had to propagandize through the newspapers. They had to propagandize the United States to support killing their ancestors that they just came from, like in the past 100 years. Like it's not like a long separation. Like they just came from there, and then they had to like, you need to kill Germans, Huns, they're bad, right? Yeah, Germany was the biggest secondary language besides English in the United States before World War I. That's how prevalent German people were. In New York, you would go to a newspaper stand and it would be German or in English newspapers. That's how prevalent. Okay? So here's what happened. So then Germany was fucked, right? Because nothing that they could do, they essentially were at the same place that we are in the United States now. Like the Germans couldn't say anything bad about Jews because it was like not honorable, right? Just like in the United States, it's like a politician can't go right now on like do a live stream or video like a senator, like let's say like Rand Paul. Let's say that Rand Paul has some beef with Dianne Feinstein because he didn't like gun control, and then he thinks that Dianne Feinstein is working with Chuck Schumer to push gun control because they're both Jews and that they have allegiance outside the United States. They can't say that because it's not politically correct. Germany had the same thing, the same cultural phenomenon at this time in World War One. So it was like Germany was a slave to their media, the synthesized media, and they were stuck and they couldn't do anything. And then so they had to ride out the rest of the war, not only getting their secrets, their military tactical secrets leaked to the enemies, to the allies, but then they started a huge campaign in the United States to bring the U.S. Army and the Marine Corps into Europe to fight them. And so, like, they were completely fucked, and they just had to sit there and watch their country get like destroyed. And they lost. I mean, it killed millions of German military-age males. Like, they lost a huge proportion of their men. So you had like war widows and orphans everywhere. Okay, that's what happened. The German population all knew this because they watched it happen the whole time. It was like a slow death, and they couldn't do anything about it. There's nothing they could do because they're totally captivated. They were completely surrounded geographically, so they don't have access. You know, they don't have like a bunch of they have U-boats and shit, but they're not like, you know, they're being blockaded and shit. Okay, so this is what happened. So after Germany loses the war and loses like millions of people, millions of men get killed, and it's by like sabotage. And this is just history. Like, you can, if you don't agree with this, that's fine, but you're incorrect. This is what happened. So then the British went with Australia. They went with Australia and the British, and they went through and killed the Ottoman Empire. They killed all those people. And they killed like all the defensive inhabitants of Palestine, and then they held it. Right, like they just stayed there and held it until the initial transfer for settlements through Britain. Right. On the German side, they have the Paris conference after the war, and then there were like, you essentially had all the Jews of the British government and all the Jews in the French government basically like punished Germany. So like they came back. So the Germans like had this humiliating defeat where they lost all their men, and then they had like their wives were widowed, and they had orphans walking around, like little kids with no fathers and nobody to look after them, and their kids would like die in the street and shit and starve to death because nobody gave a fuck. And they had to watch this go on for like 2 generations. Then you have this whole international media come in, and you have France and England wanting to make an example of Germany and punish them hard. And this is known because Woodrow Wilson was in the Paris conference, and he had the 12 points plan. And he wanted to go easier on Germany because when he went over to Germany, he saw how fucked up it was and how many people died and how much suffering there was. And he was like, you guys, this is way too hardcore. Like, you can't, this is inhuman. Like, are you guys insane? And they were like, nope, like, we're going to fuck these guys. And Woodrow Wilson didn't get his 12-point peace plan. They went like way hardcore. Germany had to pay reparations. So they went into debt. Then all of their real estate got bought up. So they lost like all their houses. All the real estate got bought up by Jews who went back to Germany or who were in Germany, but they hadn't been kicked out, but they were in Germany, and they just started buying up everything and just going crazy, like almost like a victory party. And then the Germans had to watch all this shit. And then at some point, you have you have they tried to do a communist coup, and that was really the last straw. Like what happened was they were sucking, like Germany was sucking really bad, and they were really weak, and they're all fucked up, but like they were enduring it, you know, somehow. But what happened was they brought in what is it? Karl Lechnek, Leschnect, Karl Lechnek, and what's that gal's name? Can somebody help me out? The Communist Revolution in Germany, the failed Communist Revolution. There's a Berg, I believe. Could have been Karl Lichtenay. Rosenberg. Yeah. No, it wasn't Rosenberg, was it? What's her full name? You guys help me out here? We're kind of hanging. Karl Lichtenay and Rosen Luxemburg. Thank you. Thank you, Jade. So Karl Lichtenay and Rosa Luxemburg ran a communist-funded, like a synthesized communist revolution in Germany, and then the newspapers all pumped it up like, you know, like this is what's happening, guys. Like everybody go, communism, and the German people were like, you know, it was totally incompatible. It's not compatible at all, right? Like culturally. So like the Germans weren't going to fall for it at all. Like the rest of the world was falling for it. The rest of the world was watching from the outside, and they're like, oh, I guess the Germans want to be communist now. Interesting. Like, wow. I guess they're really turning around from being the evil Hun. The Germans were sitting at home like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, we're not going to do this. Like, we're not going to be communist and have a fake government. Because they just got like stuck in there and funded by the bankers. So that's when you get the predecessor to the SS. So what happens? Yeah, Karl Marx is a Jew. So what happens is the Germans go hog wild, right? Like the Germans be Germans. They be Erman, right? Erman. They be the guys. Germany's record is like you know that when the Roman Empire was around, they sent up legions into like Germany's the reason that the Roman Empire fell. Like the Germans would sack Roman legions and like steal their eagles and shit and just kill all their men just to say they did it. And they disappear in the woods and then they wouldn't get their eagle back. And they would send like a follow-up legion to go recover the eagle because they had like a unit pride in their emblem of like the gold eagle. And the Germans would like wear that shit on their hat. They'd make like hats out of it and stuff, and they'd wear like a little eagle on their head for fun because they were like so barbaric, you know, they're just like wild men, right? So they got a fighting spirit. Jesse, is that like a correct, is my description correct since you wrote essays on German involvement in fall of Roman Empire? Yeah, Germans sacked Rome. That's right. It's part of the reason Germans sacked Rome. That's part of the reason that the Jews went to Germany. The reason that the Jews wanted to go to Germany so much, and the reason that the Germans accepted the Jews when they first went to Germany, was because the Germans helped sack Rome, and the Jews were enemies of Rome because Rome is Edom. Edomites is how the Jews consider Rome. So the Germans were like buddies with the Jews. Drew Shaw says, Dugan, who's responsible for opening your eyes? Jewish authors are who responsible. Reading books about Jewish history by Jewish authors. Okay. Okay, so where were we? So communist revolution. So that's when you get the German militias, when you get Karl Lichtenay and Rosa Luxemburg in Germany doing their fake communist revolution and taking the Reichstag and all that, the building, whatever the building is for German politics, I don't know what it's called. When they took that building, that was like the last straw. The Germans were like, no, right? And they got their They got their Steins, like their big beer mugs, right? And they're like, we're gonna make militias. And so they took their World War gear, World War One gear. They busted that out. They busted out. They had like some left over, and then they pull out and they put painted skulls all over it. And they're like, we're pirates now. We be pirates. And then they went and they fucking murdered all those people, all the communist Jews that tried to take over the country. They murdered them all. And then that's out of that. That's where you get the Third Reich, because after that, the Jews didn't like it because that was like what they're trying to do. They're trying to take down Germany. So they didn't. So then you had like the international coalition against Germany, their pants basically, in their barbarism of like thwarting off a communist revolution. And then it made everything extreme, right? Because you have to understand the conditions of Weimar. Like there's anecdotal journals and stuff. I mean, it's like horrible. Have you guys read that stuff? It's like their war widows were having to do basically you had like the media pump up, like wanton hedonism culturally through like funding bars and funding like sex shops and stuff. And then you had like war widows like becoming prostitutes and like children becoming prostitutes, like child prostitution in Germany. They socialized all the younger class. And so the younger class was completely had no, like they were basically looking at a future. They were like, well, our past is a lie because it just fell and it doesn't exist anymore. We got completely, utterly destroyed. So our past is a lie. What's our future? And they're like, is it this hedonist thing? And so it was like these extremes. So you had like this like wanton engineered hedonism, kind of similar to what's going on in the United States right now. And then you had like extreme right-wingism. And that was it. And that was like the only choices, right? Well, the hedonists aren't going to be picking up any rifles because that doesn't go along with it. The right wing, which is organic to Germany, obviously has all the guns and shit. Like they're the ones that are violent. So it's like they're the ones that are like motivated to do violence. So it's like that's obviously they're going to win out, right? Because the communists are violent, but they all got killed during the revolution. And it's like you can't just do like communist revolution after communist revolution when they fail. Like if they wipe out the first one, it's like you'd have to grab a bunch of foreigners and send them in again. It's kind of obvious. Like it's hard to hide with the papers. So they couldn't do it again. So like once the first one failed and they ate it, then they're like, well, shit, that didn't work. And then the Germans went hog wild and they gathered all the weapons, and the Jews could never get back into Germany after that. You know what I mean? That's like foreign Jews. I'm saying like diasporic Zionist Jews that were trying to send in communists and shit. They could never get a stronghold on Germany after that. And then so they turned to the international media to start like the global anti-German campaign. And then the reciprocity of that was internally, that was all external, right? Internally in Germany, they felt like they had been gravely, like somebody tried to wipe them out, like wipe away their blood for the future. Like I'm just explaining German psychology of like the history of what actually happened and how it would be perceived by a human. Okay. And that human happens to be German. That's all that this is. So the Germans then, they gathered wagons on the inside, and then that's, they determined, they're like, well, we're going to get taken out. And so we're going to do the Third Reich. And that's where you get Hitler. And that's the reason that Jews were expelled from Germany. Now, what you should know that's really interesting, there's a book by a Jewish author named, I think his name's Black, last name Black. So he wrote a book that was called The Transfer Agreement. So like, apparently, like some of the first initial settlements into Palestine were a deal between Nazi Germany under Hitler and Zionist Jews in Europe, and they coordinated to ship the first shipment of Jews to Israel, and so they just shipped them over there like on Nazi gas in Nazi boats. I think a lot of Jews don't know that. Like the author of that book, I can't remember. I think it's Ian Black, maybe, I don't remember. His last name is Black. It's called The Transfer Agreement. He took like when he released this book, the Jews blacklisted him, and then he was like blacklisted from Israel for like several years until, but he used such solid source material in citing in his book that then they had, like came around. They're like, well, okay, I guess the Nazis did bring over the first Jews. Like, okay. So like it's just not what it seems. The when Germany when Nazi Germany did the initial census for Poland, for Jews in Poland, like like when they first started doing organizational state tactics against Jews for like Poland and Germany, that their census was an IBM manufactured census card, like that they use in the United States for like Cincinnati census. IBM, like the company that made IBM now, same company, made the cards for the Third Reich to take the census on Jews in Poland and Germany in 1939. I believe it's 39. I could be wrong on the year. Did you guys know that? Kind of interesting. Whose mother worked at IBM? I don't know. Bill Gates' mom worked at IBM. Yeah, that's right. Things that make you go, huh? Right? Yeah. Yeah. So essentially what you really have, if you want to describe the situation, like what's really going on is that Judaism is not, it's not Jews, like a regular Jew, right? Like, so if I got any regular ass Jews in here that aren't part of a world government conspiracy. So essentially Jews, regular Jews, make the assumption that all Jews stick together, right? Americans or Europeans make the assumption that there's all kinds of different Jews. Then there's a ruling class that involves Jews that may be religious or not religious. There may be atheist Jews or religious Jews, Zionists, and they are essentially like using the Jews as a category between the nations and Jews, and that is what Israel is. If you didn't know, in my opinion, I have a feeling that if you wrote a letter to the Israeli Prime Minister asking for a synopsis of what Israel is in its distinction, like as an entity, it wouldn't give you that description, the same description as me. I just have that feeling. What, did I lose everybody? Is that are we not cool anymore or what? I know about Noahide laws. I know all about them. I've read them all. I've read Maimonides. I've read Mishnah Torah. Okay, so what do you guys want to know now? I gotta wrap it up, but we can go into one more thing. Yeah, I know. Fucking heavy red pills, right? That's what I'm trying to explain. I'm trying to explain to you guys. You get when you put things in a box, you lose sight that there is no fucking box. When you think of things like I gotta think outside the box. You think about box. There is no box. Like this is not how creating Rhodesia. Rothschilds created Rhodesia through a man named Cecil Rhodes. So Rhodesia name is from Cecil Rhodes. If I showed you a book, it's called Tragedy and Hope. That's by Carol Quigley. Very dry read. Very like your eyes are gonna be like sandpaper. The Cecil Rhodes is all up in that book. Yeah. They carved up Middle East, carved up Africa. That's another topic. That's almost tangential. Like Zionism is the central, like all the experiments in Africa and like carving that up. that's all tangential to the central role of Zionism in the foundation of Israel. Because like there was actually like in early Zionism, there were like they considered going to an African country. I think it was, I don't know if it was Uganda. No, it was can anybody help me? Where were they going to go in Africa when they're having the initial Zionist conference, the World Congress? The Zionists almost took over an African country instead of being Israel. Or they considered it. There was talk about it. I don't think they were serious because I wouldn't fulfill any prophecies, right? Like I don't think it was Madagascar. I can't remember. That was like can't even remember where I read that. Or actually, I think I heard that from Shapiro, maybe. Yeah, it was Uganda. Yeah, Uganda. Yeah. So I heard that from Rabbi Shapiro, that is a Orthodox Jew, and he's associated with true Torah Jews. He talks about that. Thanks, David. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to wrap it up soon, but I'll try to give you some good stuff. So, okay, so we talked about Germany in World War II. Should we talk about Russia? I don't watch True News. Yes, we should talk. In World War II in Germany, that's like a whole, we could. So essentially, okay, so I'll give you a quick synopsis of the end of Germany. So essentially what's going on with the relationship with Germany after, so essentially what happened with Germany. Now there's speculation about Hitler, and I don't know. I won't pretend to know. I wasn't there. I don't know. I think it's ignorant to assume unless you're a German and you have paternal parents that knew Hitler, then I don't think, and knew his psychology and I personally knew him, then I don't think that's accurate to assume there was some crazy shit going on at that time in Europe. Like there's the most extreme time in the history of humanity, in terms of people dying and stuff. And yeah, there's speculation. There's been speculation that Hitler was a Jew, but it's that's a very unsubstantiated suspicion, right? We'll operate on an assumption of the historical precedents, right? I don't want to offend any Germans, and I don't want to offend any Jews, right? Germans would be offended if I said Hitler was a Jew. Germans would be offended, and then the Jews would be offended too. Not publicly. If he was, I don't know. There's just rumor. There's esoteric chatter. There always has been that Hitler was related to Jews, but we don't know if it's disinfo or not. I don't know. I'm not even going to try to get into it. The Nazis had Jews in their ranks, so it's it's minimal. It wasn't huge. Yeah, I got lots of advice for homesteading, but that would be a separate thing. Yeah, they were. Yeah, David says, I heard he was paying Jews to immigrate to Israel. He wasn't paying them. He was the government was initially moving Jews out of Germany and giving them a ride to Israel. That's a fact. That's not speculation. The reason why we don't know, we don't know why, it's not historically accepted either way, or substantiated, I should say, rather. It's not historically substantiated if Nazis were moving Jews to Israel because there was because Nazism had internal Zionists, or if it was just if the Nazis were okay, you guys caused a lot of problems, just go, nobody knows. I don't know anything about a cult. Hey, Alton. Okay. So what were we going to get? Okay, so the end of World War II, we'll just do quick synopsis on the end of World War II, and then maybe we'll talk a little bit about Russia, and that's it. And I got to go get the fuck out of here. So end of World War II, you essentially, okay, yeah, I've never read about Hitler's father. I just haven't, I look at the big picture more. Do you have any books about Hitler's father that you recommend? Hitler's father's changed his name from Schicklberg Gruber. Dreams of My Father. Okay, thank you. Dreams of My Father is a book about Hitler's father. Is that correct? Oh, you're funny. Yeah, I haven't read too many. I haven't read too many Obama books. Probably because I just read them like just info. Just like I read. I tried to read David Rockefeller's biography, and I was just like, oh, like this is ridiculous, so stupid. The okay, so the end of the war. So essentially, from the way that I understand it, there we go with the essentially. I'm saying essentially too many times. You guys got to hold me to that. You got to stop saying that. Makes me sound the opposite of what it's just a fill word. So so you basically get the alliance with the Soviet Union. That's the big middle part, right? I mean, a lot of shit happens, right? So other stuff that's really interesting. Other stuff that's interesting. The Third Reich, for instance. I'm just checking my bars here. The Third Reich. Yeah, so basically, the Third Reich. Sorry, guys, I'm only human. The Third Reich. So here's what's interesting. So the Jews had a boycott, an international boycott against Germany as soon as the Third Reich gets into power, right? So the Third Reich had to start like making everything internally because they couldn't get shit imported. So they, like, for instance, they didn't have fuel, right? Well, they got a technical patent transferred from Standard Oil to synthesize fuel. It's a method that's called Fischer-Tropsch method, and it was like the first method to turn like coal into fuel, because they had coal, they just didn't have fuel. So you can render all your fuels. You can tetra ether and high octane fuels and all the fuels from military vehicles and aircraft and shit. That all came from a technical patent from Standard Oil through their German subsidiary and transferred to the Germans, and that was how they made their fuel. And Standard Oil is obviously associated with Jews, so it's very interesting, right? Let's see what else. You have the boycott against Germany. They couldn't bring anything in. They allied with the Soviet Union. You had already had this entire, like, the whole story of Russia is like a whole another thing. I would never be able to even do it justice because it's so freaking huge and complex. Like what happened in Russia is equally as crazy and big as what happened in Germany. But like you get Germany is allied with Russia, and Russia starts creeping west and just taking over all of the satellite, what are now satellite states of Russia. They start creeping westward, and so the situation, and they're really brutal. So they're just murdering and raping everybody, and so like, and Germany is like watching it, and they're like, I don't know about this. And then they got the impression. I'm not saying this is right or not. I'm just saying this is what the general German impression is, or this is my impression of Germany's impression. They got the impression that a noose was being drawn around them from all sides, and that they were going to get sneak attacked by their ally Russia, and then the like Britain and France we're gonna permit it, we're gonna help or anything, and they're just gonna let them get destroyed. And then the Germans actually thought that they were going to continue to. The Germans thought that they were going to take Germany, and they were going to continue and take over like France and everything else. That's just what the Germans thought. It's in speeches. Like I think Goebbels talks about it and shit in speeches that are recorded that you can look up. So that's like historically, they at least say that that's what they think. So you get the launch of Operation Barbarossa, which is basically like a Hail Mary to go knock out communism, to knock out Russia. Now, I don't know. I'm not well researched on Barbarossa, so I don't want to, go into that. But they basically launched an offensive, almost got to Moscow, exactly like Napoleon, and then they get turned back. And then it's like all downhill for that for Germany. They pretty much put all their eggs in the basket of like, well, if we're gonna go out, we're gonna try to take out communism on our way out. And then they lost tons of people on the backside, and then went back into Germany. And then you have like the Red Army advancing, right behind them the entire time. And then you get like Niemersdorf, right? So you guys familiar with Niemersdorf? Is there anybody in this chat? You're not familiar with Niemersdorf? Okay. Okay, here we go. Man, this is fucking heavy shit. Niemersdorf, Nemers DORF. Okay, so Niemersdorf is like the farthest eastward German racial like people. Like it's like an old land, like old land from like the German people. Like not like necessarily German nation state, but just like when they're just spread out in the area, like the racial people, right? It doesn't have it. They're technically German under the Third Reich because Germany nationalized, and they just fell under the Third Reich, just like Alsace-Lorraine fell under the Third Reich. But they're not really. They're just technically Germanic, right? So that was like the first actual German soil that they went on, that the Red Army went on, right? There's a river there. There's a bridge. So this is pretty bad stuff. So essentially, what happened was it's like a really old village, right? Like I don't think there's any power or anything like that, right? Like it's just a farming village, like women and children and stuff. The Third Reich set up a POW camp in there for French soldiers. I believe it's French. It might be Belgian soldiers. They had a POW camp. It was like a work camp, So they have like under the German Reich in Niemersdorf. Niemersdorf doesn't have any choice. They have to take the work camp, and then they're doing whatever kind of work for Germany, under nationalized Germany. So Red Army gets in there, and there's like I don't know how many inhabitants. A lot of them fled because they knew that the Red Army was like in the French and Belgian. Thank you. They were like the Red Army was in the area, like in the approximate area, So a lot of people fled, but then they left a lot of the women and old people, So the Red Army gets in there and they raped and murdered everybody, like 80, or I think the oldest woman there was like 70, raped, like gang raped by an entire, I don't know if it was a regiment size or a division size. What was the element that went into Niemersdorf? What was the element size? Can anybody tell me the unit also? I think it was like 9th Infantry or something. Yeah, so they went in there and they killed the historical record is 72 Germans, and then they also just went ahead and executed the French and Belgian too. So they killed all of them. They shot them all in the head. It was the 2nd Battalion, 25th Guards Tank Brigade. I don't know if they had a small hat. So like Library of Congress actually. So the German went in there afterwards. So the Germans like responded as soon as they're like, oh fuck, they're in Niemersdorf, and they like sent everybody there, and they repelled. But they had like been in there for like 2 nights. So they like raped and murdered everybody. And it's terrible. Like they took photos, like evidence photos, because they use it for, essentially like German propaganda, like to pump up everybody. And they're like, look, when the Red Army gets in here, this is what's going to happen to you Germans. And they're like, so you need to fight to the death. And then they like published all the pictures. Well, it's like pictures of like babies shot in the head. And then like obvious, like the pictures are like old women and stuff face down in ditches, like in creeks, with like their pants pulled off and like sticks shoved up their ass and stuff. Like it's horrible. It is really, really terrible. They went to after Niemersdorf, they went to what was it? Meta. Somebody help me out here. I don't know these names. I'm not European. Mega something. It's like Megadeth. The Megadeth city in Europe. something like that. They went into there, Metgathen. Thank you. So Megathan, they went in there, and then the Red Army was like tying up school children in a park with like women in their like city park, and then just strapped like comp B to them, just blew them up. And then they raped all them too. So if you didn't know this, when the Red Army went into Germany, they raped everybody. So like even after, like when they took, like they raped everybody the entire way. And there's entire books written about this because it was so extreme. Now, what's interesting is that historians like Zionists will typically, like, they'll look at that and they'll scoff and they'll be like, well, the Germans deserved it. But here's the thing: it's like they raped liberated Jew camps. It's like when they got into Germany. So the Red Army came in and they liberated Nazi concentration camps and they raped the Jews. You didn't know that? Yeah, they would rape Jews. There's like Jews from concentration camps wrote books about their experience of fleeing the Red Army after being like liberated by the Red Army and then running away and shit, and then getting raped like while they're trying to run away from the Red Army. They raped all the way into, like, they were raping people before German territory. They were raping like any of the Eastern Bloc nations that they were going through. They're just raping everybody. They raped when they went into Berlin, and when Germany fell, they raped. It's something like I mean, everybody got killed, right? So like they killed like all the, there's a huge death count for Germany. Like they lost big time. When they got into Berlin, they just continued raping people as like a standard for like years for the entire. And Americans raped Germans too, by the way. There's entire they execute the American Army executed African American soldiers for raping Germans. They didn't execute European soldiers, European racial American soldiers, I mean, that were in the American Army that came over to fight Germany. They typically wouldn't get shot, but because of like racial tension with the Germans, because the Germans didn't like getting raped by the Africans, and because like the Americans were sympathetic to it because they're also European racial background, they would execute the black American soldiers by Americans. There's American executing, like doing a field execution. So the Germans had like, I think it's something like 3 million women got raped or something like that, and then a bunch of them got murdered too. They would also murder women pretty regularly. Like they would often rape them and then murder them. So anyway, that's just a history. That's just a history. That's like fact. People don't know that because they always think, this is the propaganda is very anti-German, but it's like that's just what happens. So it's like you can't really. I mean, if the Germans are killing people, nobody should be murdering anybody. Does everybody get that? Do we get that? We're in the same ethical standard. Like nobody should be getting murdered or raped, regardless of who it is. Jews shouldn't be getting murdered or raped. Normal people, other people, the German, the everybody of any group, any Marxist group, the communists shouldn't be getting raped. Okay. Murder bad. Yes, thank you. That's all I'm trying to say. Is it really shadow banned? I'm sure it is. We only got 81 viewers in here. It's not listed on my channel? I don't know. Yeah, probably, it's not a very ugly, or it's not very, it's not the same history that you're taught in school. It's significant. It's significant enough that it's significant because we have a totally false history, right? Like Patton, this is where Patton changed. Like when Patton was in Germany, that's when Patton like totally switched, because Patton was involved in suppressing the bonus army, right? With the tank division under MacArthur, like basically like burning down the shanty towns and assaulting the U.S. veterans from World War I in the bonus army in Washington, D.C. on Pennsylvania Avenue in 1933 or whatever, 31, 33, right? So Patton changed his tune once he was in Germany and he saw how fucked up things were in post-World War II and all the people getting raped and shit. And then that's like when like Patton became really anti-Semitic. At the end of his tenure. There was no bonus army in World War II as far as I'm aware. Yeah, Patton died pretty quick. There's speculation about. I don't know if Patton was murdered or not. People speculate that. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I wasn't there. I can tell you that people get killed. Shit goes on in Europe now. When I was stationed in Europe, they have like the German nightclubs and stuff. And then we would get like it would be a normal thing, right? Where it'd be like, you'd have your weekend safety briefing in the army. Like this is like early 2000s. And they'd be like, weekend safety briefing. They'd be like, all right, remember to wrap it before you tap it. And, don't cook bacon naked. And, oh, by the way, nobody go to this one club because somebody set off a hand grenade over there, like on Friday night. And now it's off limits. Like, no, this side of town is off limits. So like people get killed in Europe all the time. There was one time I was on CQ. I was on CQ duty and a dude, like I heard some story about like somebody had gotten drunk. They were like out drinking at the clubs and shit. And Germany has a Turkish population now because they started like Germany had early, like how we're getting mass immigration now, like controlled immigration. Germany had that earlier than us, right? Like, so they brought in the Turk population in Germany. This is in Schweinfurt. And I heard stories about like there was somebody who they were walking home drunk from a bar and they got jumped by Turkish guys and all they had was a pocket knife. So they just like stuck a pocket. They were like drunk and they're like, I'm not gonna be able to fight these guys. And they tried to like mug him. And then he was like on his way back to the barracks. So he just like stuck a knife in their fucking chest and then like dumped him in the river and the rest of them got freaked out and ran. And then he came back to CQ and he's like, I don't know what happened. Like I was just walking home and I think I killed a guy. And then they could never find the guy that he killed. So like people die all the time in Europe. I mean, it's fucked up. Sorry, I shouldn't be laughing at that. It's misfortunate. I quit doing Carnicon. Mass immigration? Well, I could. I don't think we should save mass immigration for another topic, for another stream. It's a whole. Plus, it would be like this, right? It would be like this. I'm not doing these, even though you guys don't understand. Like there could be some Jews watching this and they think I'm anti-Semitic, and I'm not. But I do believe in holding people accountable exactly for their actions. The Jews aren't getting their like the Jews want to be a people when it's good. They don't want to be a people when it's bad, and they got a lot of shit that they need to. If they don't want bad things to happen, like they need to accept the reality, which is fine. I think they can get through it. Potentially, maybe, I don't know. It's not. I can't talk about immigration. I can't. Yeah. Well, it's not even atonement, right? Like human life is precious. Human life is invaluable. Even your greatest enemy, human life is precious. There is no atonement on earth for taking life, and I mean that for me too. Like for my war service, like there's no atonement for taking life. You can never return life that you took. So I don't think that it's like an atonement. Plus, it's like in these situations, it's not Jews killing people; it's the Goyim killing people, right? Like the Goyim are killing each other. It's just under Jewish, they're causing the situation in these cases. Right? The Jews aren't murdering people directly. I should make that really clear. Like Jews are very, they follow their mitzvahs. They're not going to kill people. There needs to be a historical account of actual history. That's it. Because what happens is you get like right now the bubble is so big, it's almost like an inflation bubble. It's like the misjustice in the world has compounded and it's become so big that it can't be kept under the rug anymore, and then it's just gonna like burst. And so what like the Jews, like the Zionist Jews, think that they're gonna like continue to push it under the rug, and then they're gonna like just like cause a situation where they get people to fight each other in the nations to suppress reality for the future. But it's like it's just going to come out. But if that happens, what I'm trying to appeal to are rational Jewish people to listen to me and understand that like if this whole thing that's coming up explodes, like you're going to pay for it, right? And you shouldn't have to. Like if you're Jewish and you didn't kill somebody or hurt somebody or cause somebody misfortune on purpose, then that's not your price to pay, right? But it's somebody else to take responsibility for it. But it's been so many generations that nobody's taking responsibility for it, that's going to roll back on you. And by ignoring it, you're it's like standing in front of a moving train and not getting out of the way. You get what I'm saying? Like I could sit here all day and I could talk about how good night, have a good night. I could sit here all day and like pump up my like service and inflate myself to be like I didn't do anything wrong and like all this stuff. But it's like a shot at people. I don't like that, you know, and I got to accept that. It's just the way that it was. Now that's my own personal action, right? It's a little bit different, right? Like I don't think Jews also don't need to speak for the Jewish people, but you can't have it both ways. You can't say like, you know, we are the Jewish people and then also not talk about the history of the Jewish people and suppress it in the relationship to the nations. It's just a recipe for disaster. I got to wrap things up. I'm sorry, guys. I got to go to sleep. All right. So I'll go ahead and leave this one up. This one's going to be, people aren't going to like this one, but because I didn't bring sources, but I've read all this stuff. So it's like, if I said it, I've read it somewhere and authenticated it. I like when I read critically. Okay. Have a good night, guys. Thank you. Have fun.